2008, I lost about $50 million conservatively.
Welcome, everybody. It's another beautiful day, and we are here on the Rocket Your Dollar podcast. And I'm really, really happy because I'm a little bit starstruck in a way because I watch his stuff actually on Instagram and on YouTube right now. And now I think about it, I may be saying it wrong, but we have with us today Rod. Is it Khleif or Khleif?
Khleif.
Khleif. Okay, all right. Because I've heard people say it two different ways, so I'll go with the Rod Khleif. And Rod is just an amazing entrepreneur. He's really embedded into the real estate investing space, and I've just personally found his content great. So it's kind of nice to be able to, instead of me consuming some of his content, maybe me asking some clarification questions and just really understanding the story of Rod himself. So without further ado, Rod Khleif, joining us here on the Rocket Your Dollar podcast. Rod, maybe we could just start with tell us about yourself, where you are,
Sure.
how you got into what you're doing. I think I already set you up as a real estate investing guru and coach.
Well, I am a legend in my own mind, so there is that. But yeah, so listen, I'm a Dutch immigrant, think wooden shoes and windmills, and immigrated to this country when I was 6 years old with my brother Albert, my mother's Vansha. And we ended up in Denver, Colorado, and didn't have much growing up. In fact, really struggled. I remember we shopped at an expired food store, believe it or not. They had that back then, and drank powdered milk with our cereal in the morning because it was cheaper than real milk. And trust me, it sounds better than it is. And I wore hand-me-down clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school. And so we struggled. My mom babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And with her babysitting money, she was a bit of an entrepreneur. So she actually invested in the stock market successfully in IPOs, and she also invested in real estate. And her first real estate acquisition, again, all this with no formal education, her first real estate acquisition was the house right across the street from us. She bought for about $30,000 when I was 14 years old. Then when I was 17, she told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep, that it had gone up in value. And I was, what? You made $20,000? You didn't do anything? And this is when $20,000 was a lot of money, mind you. And I said, forget college. I'm getting into real estate. So I went and got my real estate broker's license, which you could do back then with education. They got smart now. You can't be a broker and have your own office until you've got some experience. But I was a broker, and I was smart enough to go work for another broker, but I was still living at home. And my first year in real estate, I made about $8,000. My second year, maybe $10,000. But my third year, I made over $100,000, which back in 1980 was some pretty decent money. And so what happened between year 2 and year 3 that caused me to 10x my income? Well, what happened was the broker I was working for taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology, how that really is 80 to 90% of your success in anything. And, and I adopted that. And fast forward to today, I've owned over 2,000 houses that I've rented long-term. I own thousands of apartments now, and I'm actually very heavily into senior housing now as well. And, in 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you might say, wow. And I said, wow. And I got a head so big, I could barely fit it through a door. I thought I was a real estate god. And when that happens, God of the universe will give you a nice little smackdown. Well, that was 2008 and 9. In 2008, I lost about $50 million conservatively. And so what I'm known for talking about on my podcast and, when I teach, is the mindset it took to have 50 million to lose in the first place. And maybe definitely as important, maybe even more important, was the mindset to recover from that to the success that I'm blessed to have today. So, that's a topic we could have fun with if you like, Henry, or we could certainly get right into real estate as well.
Well, let me ask, that 2008-9, was it just that you were really getting going? You're probably doubling down because you were successful, and it kind of gets into your head, and then all of a sudden everything changed.
Everything collapsed, Henry. I don't know if you were in real estate at that time, but I mean, it was like a light switch went off. And people, I get hate online all the time. I've got a huge social presence, and because I had 800 houses at that time, and I was only at a 30, and people are like, "Oh, you were over leveraged." No, I was at a 30% loan to value, and I still crashed and burned. Yeah, because it was the houses.
Trying to get at.
Houses are difficult to cash flow. They don't cash flow like multifamily. And when I look back on it, it was the houses that pulled me down. I also had some apartment complexes which would have survived. They pulled back about 11% in revenue, but they would have survived. But I had cross-collateralized them with packages of houses, thinking I was brilliant to save 50 basis points or 0.5% interest, and so I lost it all. And that's why, out of the ashes of that, when I decided to ultimately get back into real estate, I focused on multifamily. And, so I started my podcast, and I'm blessed to say now it's the largest really real estate podcast in the world for commercial real estate. And now and I used to tell people when I first started it, I'll never sell you anything. I just want to add value and have you,
Right.
recognize that you're safer in multifamily. Now I'm a liar because I sell everything, but I never planned to sell anything. But, it took off, so I went with it.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So, help me understand that, going from, uh, let's say the single family homes to the multifamily, like, just maybe let's go into the details a little bit because we have people, most of our customers at Rocket Dollar using their IRA accounts. If they're
Mhm.
doing multifamily or just participating very passively as a part of a syndication, right? So they're not really in the business of trying to run it on their own, but one of the things I thought about is that we've never actually had anyone on that kind of talks about like what it's like to be the operator of this. We've had people that are just your straight syndicators and they're just more interested in kind of getting people to invest in these 25, 50,
Sure.
$100,000 chunks of them, but they don't ever take the time to actually explain that this is the difference between multifamily versus single family. We got a lot of single family investors who maybe dabble via syndications passively into multifamily. But since we just have you on the show, maybe you can kind of talk about the meat and potatoes, so to speak.
Sure. So, well, I teach this. So, if you're a passive investor and you're interested in the multifamily space, for God's sakes, come to one of my boot camps. They're like $47, and I don't sell anything there, so it's a no-brainer for 2 days of training. And
Hmm.
because again, why would you invest in anything? Invest your hard-earned money without some basic knowledge of what you're investing in, right?
Sure.
And so, I highly encourage your listeners, if they're interested in multifamily, to come to one of my boot camps. Again, it's $47. Don't squander your hard-earned money. If you're going to learn how to, invest in businesses, study that. If you're going to learn to invest in the stock market with your IRA, study that. But, don't just throw your money at something without some basic knowledge. But yeah, so I started teaching this, and I'm going to brag for just a moment here, Henry. My students now, I have coaching students, about 2,000. They own about 300,000 units under my tutelage, which is more than everybody else that does this combined. And so, and it's because I also incorporate mindset and psychology into my teaching. It's not just the mechanics, but there are a lot of little nuances when you're evaluating a syndication. It's very easy for an operator like myself. I'm a syndicator. Very easy for an operator to make things look fantastic just by adjusting a couple of numbers. And that's why I would tell you, get your butt to my boot camp so that you can recognize that type of behavior and really do your own at least basic evaluation of a PPM, a private placement memorandum, or a pro forma on a deal, because it's so easy to make things look good, I guess is my point. And, I'll be candid, there are a lot of multifamily operators in trouble right now. Not only have the interest rates had a huge impact on operators, but really our expense ratios have gone through the roof. And I used to teach a 50% expense ratio, and now I teach about a 60 to 65% expense ratio for multifamily. And so, and it's because payroll has gone through the roof. Other expenses have gone, taxes, insurance, and everything's gone up, and rents have not caught up with that yet. And so, multifamily is in some distress. Yeah, there's incredible opportunity as well. I mean, with
That
crisis comes, incredible opportunity. But I've actually shifted because I really think the real opportunity in multifamily is probably still 6 months to a year off. That there's a wall of debt coming, $1 trillion worth of debt coming across all commercial asset classes, and a lot of it's multifamily. And these operators, if their debt is due, they have two options. They can either sell or they can refinance. Well, sales are down about 90%, and refinancing, they have to meet debt service coverage requirements. They're looking at the properties, lenders looking at the property's ability to service the debt, and they can't. And so there's some, I will tell you, I have an SEC attorney that does my syndications. He's a great friend. And he told me, it's probably been a couple months ago, that on one day he got 6 apartment complex foreclosure clients, 6 separate clients that were in foreclosure. So, I
Wow.
mean, that's what's happening right now. Again, with crisis comes opportunity, but I've shifted to senior housing, and I mentioned this to you before we started recording. I mean, there's 8 to 10,000 people a day turning 80 in this country, and it's the baby boomers, and that's going to continue for decades. And there's a huge shortage of beds, projected shortage of beds. I mean, it's staggering how big that shortage is. And so, yeah, we're very excited about some opportunities that we're in right now, but and
Yeah.
raising money for as well. But I won't put a sales
Right.
pitch out there. But yeah,
Well, and you're too modest to do this, but you mentioned your $47 boot camp. Like, I mean,
right.
let me, since we're here in the early part, tell us a little bit about how people find that, because this is how I
Oh,
found
sure.
you.
Yeah,
Was
sure. Rodsbootcamp.com. Rodsbootcamp.com is easy. Or you could just go to my link tree, which has all my stuff, my podcast, a bunch of free books, and they're really good books. They're not like crappy. They're real good books. So rodslinks.com, rods plural links plural.com is my bootcamp site is there. My podcast link is there. And there's also a goal setting workshop there. People spend more time planning a birthday party than they do designing their lives. Come do your goals with me. Have your spouse do it. Have your kids, if they're over 10 years old, do it. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. There's a guide you can download and do your goals. It's an hour. You give me an hour, you'll leave so motivated, you'll be coming out of your skin. But that's there as well. So again, rodslinks.com is where the bootcamp site is. And I have never had a complaint about the boot camp other than the breaks are too short because I'm packing in so much into those 2 days. I do 15-minute breaks. But other than that,
sure.
Even at my live events, the only complaint we ever got was the food sucked and the room was too cold or something like that. It's never about the content. So, yeah.
I got it. Yeah. Well, usually it's only the people who have some sort of issue that they're the ones who bring it up, right? So kind of the squeaky wheels. But and maybe just as a quick like entree, I've had a lot of people on who are in the real estate investing space, but probably more geared towards single family. What's a typical profile of someone who's ripe for your boot camp? Like whether that's, age, maybe they have a little bit of money saved, that maybe they have a single family rental or career changer.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you what our avatar is. And it's somebody that's done typically some single family, has owned some single family. They realize that road is listen, I'm a slow learner. It took me 2,000 houses to get the memo that it was much easier to do multifamily. But, most people aren't as slow as I am. So, that's the natural progression. You buy a house or two, you buy a duplex, you buy a 10 unit, and then you're ready to go for a 100-unit complex. And it's intimidating raising money for a deal. Oh, that's scary, and it's really just building relationships and having, an attorney dot the I's and cross the T's. But that's what I teach in my boot camps basically. But and I teach you to do basic due diligence and analyze a pro forma. And so, some basic underwriting, and how to finance these deals, how to syndicate them, how to joint venture, how to create a team, pick a market, evaluate a property. The boot camp is about 12 hours between 2 days. So it's a lot. But again, if you've got $100,000, you're thinking about investing passively in a real estate deal. For God's sakes, come learn a little bit about what you're doing, what you're going to put your money into. That's my advice to you. Not even if even if you're not interested in doing it actively, like as an operator, like I do and my students do. If you even investing passively, just be careful with. You worked hard for that money. So
sure. And now, when we hear the term multifamily, we think apartment complexes, but is multifamily kind of the overarching asset class name, and that includes these assisted living, or is that different?
No. That's called senior housing. Yeah, that's called senior housing. Multifamily is apartments, and from a duplex all the way up to 400 units is multifamily. You could quasi say mobile home parks are in there as well. And my students own a bunch of every asset class, really: mobile home parks, industrial flex space, retail, you name it, self-storage, student housing. But multifamily is the primary vehicle that most of my students use, and excuse me, very successfully. But and so again, the boot camp will really help with learning that, and it actually, I teach you how to a lot of the underwriting. There are a lot of similarities between multifamily and some of these other asset classes when you're doing your evaluation. So you can learn, kind of even a more global education on the commercial real estate space. And so,
got it.
but yeah.
Okay. Well, and then let me ask you, since we have you here, that right now, I mean, are there any particular, if we drill down a little bit into multifamily itself, like are there particular geographic regions? So when you say this wall of debt, this $1 trillion wall of debt is coming, are these
Mhm.
concentrated in places that maybe leading up to the '08 crisis, credit crisis, there were places
No,
overbuilt? There are particular
no,
areas or?
all over
Oh,
the country, all over the country, and this is, I focus on the red states. It's not a political statement. It's a cost of doing business and less brain damage approach. But the states that I'm invested in are Texas, Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, Ohio, Indiana. Those are the ones I'm invested in, but there's incredible opportunities in multiple states all over the country. And I teach again at my boot camp. I teach what to look for in a market, what to look for in a geographic area, because that's another thing you should look at if you're going to invest in somebody's deal is where they're purchasing this asset and what the demographics look like in that market, that submarket, that state. What historical unemployments looked like, what the population is population growing or declining, is income growing or declining, what do the jobs look like? These are all the important factors that you probably don't know if you've never evaluated a deal before. And these are, and I make it really fun too. And I feel like I'm
sure.
pushing my boot camp, but I make it really fun.
I'm
People
asking
don't.
you to do that, Rod.
All
So
right, fair enough, fair enough. Yeah,
everyone knows you're
fair
modest.
enough.
I'm the one pushing you to
Oh,
push it.
all right,
So,
all right. Well, you won't leave. I'll keep it very exciting because I spend time on mindset. The first thing we do, first thing is my goal setting thing on steroids for an hour. And again, because how do you know what you want if you don't clearly define it? And so that's how you create that hunger, that burning desire. That's how you push through fear and limiting
mhm,
beliefs to actually change your lot in life. So,
sure.
but and then we do a lot more too. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and a lot of times, I mean, obviously, it sounds like your mother was the big influence to kind of take you on this entrepreneurial path, and even specific to real estate's what led you to what you are now. And it sounds like the upbringing itself also was, and I've talked about this myself on a podcast too, that entrepreneurs who kind of came from difficult upbringings, just everything wasn't handed to them. They're kind of okay taking these chances and having that mindset because they started in a position where they didn't have much. So if things don't go right and they kind of get kicked to the ground, they know what it's like to be on the ground looking up. And so they're able to get back up again. There's a segment of the population that, to be quite frank, has never been, kicked in the teeth before and knocked to the ground.
Let me tell you something. Henry. I get hate every single day. No one should have owned 800 houses. You're the reason I can't buy a house. No, the reason you can't buy a house is you're in your mom's basement whining. But the point is a lot of people haven't had to struggle, and you're dead right. And yeah, I get love every day too, by the way. A lot more love
Sure.
than hate, by the way. But it's sad because I think we've created a lot of entitled, wishy-washy. My primary avatar is men, obviously, although I have some super successful single moms with kids and everything else too. But
Sure.
my primary avatar is probably 28 to 55 years old that gets in as an operator and starts buying these apartment complexes. And there's no common denominator. It's not the one that comes in with the most money, lives in the biggest city. I mean, I've had NFL players, NBA players, famous actors. Now, the successful people in my world, in my coaching program, my warriors, are the ones that just take action, massive freaking action, and they're the ones that succeed. It doesn't matter where they come from, what their education looks like, and so that's a little clue for those of you listening.
Sure.
It's all about action. So. Yeah.
No, that's great. I love the mindset approach too. I mean, it really, kind of makes me think about you're sort of this maybe real life example is equivalent of a Think and Grow Rich, type of thing where, you kind of have.
By the way, I've given away probably close to 15,000 physical copies of that book. I'm not exaggerating. Because
Wow.
I used to give it away at my live events. I've given away 15,000 copies of Think and Grow Rich. That's a book you should read 2 or 3 times a year. I also spent 26 years with Tony Robbins, who's really the best in the world at mindset and psychology. But he got it all from Napoleon Hill and
Yeah.
Jim Rohn and some of these other thought leaders over the years. But yeah, because that's it. Even if you're investing passively, your mindset and psychology matters. Like if you're trading your money, for example, you're trading on the stock market, mindset's a huge piece of that as well.
Right.
And so, it's an important thing. And again, if you're listening, if you've got kids and your spouse, go to Rod's links and do my goal setting workshop. It'll be a fun thing to do as a family. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. Just go design your
Right.
life, and it's super powerful.
Well, and one thing I'm kind of curious about, and I'm sure the people in the Rocket Dollar community, that you got into real estate initially in 1980. You were in one segment of it. You basically got hit by a train while sitting on the tracks in the credit crisis, and now, depending on how people's outlook may be, 2026 is a difficult time frame as well. But like, your thoughts, like if I were to say, hey, Rod, pontificate, like what is real, if we were looking back and it was the year 2036, for example, what does 2026 represent? We're in this current interest rate environment. Like, where do people live?
Incredible
Like, what does real estate look like 10 years from
incredible
now?
opportunity right now. Incredible opportunity. Warren Buffett's famous quote, be fearful when others are greedy. There was a lot of greed in 2022, 23, and 21 even. But
Yeah.
the flip side of that quote is be greedy when others are fearful. And there's a lot of fear right now. It's more challenging to raise money for deals. I'm raising money, I mentioned, for 6 assisted living facilities, and we're killing it. We're already halfway subscribed, but because the numbers are incredible. But for most people, it's very, very hard right now. And it's because there's a lot of fear out there, and some investors, passive investors, have been stung in some of these multifamily deals that are distressed that have gone south. And so, there's fear, but with, again, the most successful operators on the planet are contrarian investors, okay, that have invested when, in times like this. So if you're looking back on this time, look at it like an opportunity, just like 2009, 10, 11, and 12 were. Now, I was hiding under a rock, and I'd started another business at that time, and I didn't want to hear the words real estate for a couple of years, but
Hmm.
that was an incredible opportunity, just like it is right now and will be for the next, probably, I would say, 12 to 24 months, because there's just a lot of distressed stuff hitting the market. I'll give you an example. I've got an asset, we call them assets, an apartment complex in San Antonio, 200 units. Right next door was one that sold in 2022 for $43 million, 300 unit complex. Okay. Right next to my 200 unit.
Okay.
The bank got it back, and they listed it for 28 million. 43 to 28. I wasn't interested unless it dropped to 24. Somebody else paid 28, but I'm all about cash flow, and the numbers still did. But 43 to 28 or even 24, that's what's out there
Sure.
right now. And so you're buying these things for less than replacement cost. This senior housing portfolio I've got, I'm paying 40,000 a unit. You can't build one of these for less than 250 to 350,000 a unit. I'm paying 40,000, and these are nice buildings. So, the opportunity is right now. If you're looking in the rearview mirror in 2036, you'll be saying, oh man, I should have bought in 2026, 27, 28, because the opportunity is here. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And then, that's specific to sort of the getting into this now. And then maybe if I drill down a little bit here as we kind of come to a close, just that one thing I'm always curious about too is that, uh, and I've asked this of different people, but depending on what they may coach on or what their area of expertise is that, with younger people coming up now, is there a risk? And let me ask this in a specific way, but
I hope you're going to talk about AI.
it wasn't necessarily AI, but I am
Oh, okay.
curious to get your thoughts specifically on how you think people will live. I mean, I kind of see to myself that the well-to-do 35 to 50-year-old people, so that's the older half of millennial, the younger half of Gen X, that even the ones who have, let's say, two, three, four, $5 million are not interested in going to live in the 5, 6, 7,000 square foot homes that are kind of littering the exurbs of major cities like a Denver, Colorado, Austin, Texas, Dallas, and Houston. And I'm just wondering that they don't want to live in those places. They could afford to go do so. Or do we become more of a renter type of society? I mean, who knows,
We've become a renter nation, Henry. No question. And a lot of that demographic likes to be mobile. And so you're seeing that. You're seeing incredibly high rents in the more desirable locations like a Miami, like a Dallas, obviously New York's been crazy forever. Austin has been high, but you're luckily rents have flatlined a lot, and which is why the expense ratio is much higher when you're analyzing these deals right now until the rents pick back up again. But um, no, I mean we are definitely have become a renter nation, and so and I will tell you, like for example, when COVID hit. Um, Shopping centers didn't get rent relief. Office buildings didn't get rent relief. But we got hundreds of thousands of dollars in rental assistance because people have to have a place to live. So, there's some safeguards, as it were,
Sure.
in the multifamily space, and mobile home parks got it as well. But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question. I kind of went off on
Yeah,
a
no, you
tangent
did.
there for a
Like
minute.
just like
Okay.
how maybe like the way people live or the mindset's a little bit
Mhm.
different. And
Mhm.
since you kind of tease like what is I mean, I've given my thoughts recently in a public interview on AI, and I just said that my hope is that AI continues to be used by folks to enhance their thinking, not replace their thinking, right? Because social media was originally presented and marketed to us as a way for us to remain closer and more connected to people. And I would argue that if you were to do a random poll right now, most people are going to say it actually lets us be further apart. I may know this distant friend's birthday or this distant relative, but I haven't talked to that individual in 20 years either.
Well, those are two completely different, separate things. Social
Sure.
media, I think, has absolutely created distance. I get jitters when I'm away from my phone for 30 seconds. I went to the Apple store and they were fixing my phone. I got jitters. You become so addicted to it. But
Sure.
and the algorithms are powerful enough to get you hooked. I used to read a book a day when I went on vacation. Now I sit and watch these mind-numbing, ridiculous TikTok videos for 5 hours. But let's talk about AI for a second, because I
Sure.
believe AI is. I mean, it's super exciting. It's actually onerous as well. There's some scary parts to it. But
Hmm.
for example, in my own business, my daughter does my SEO. She's a brilliant woman, and she's gonna have to move on, and I'm helping her start another business, actually an AI implementation business. But OpenClaw can do everything she does better. My social media guy, and I have a big social media presence, as much as 3 million views every 30 days or so, and his that OpenClaw system is going to do 95% of what he's been doing for me. And so, we're just in the middle of setting it up right now, but it's astounding what it can do. So what I'm fearful of, Henry, is these
Hmm.
young kids that are getting into college for things that AI is basically going to replace: accounting, legal, even medical, engineering, architecture, that AI can do better. And so, I feel sorry for these kids that are in school right now that are facing that. And I think a lot of, obviously tech, anything IT related, if you're in that kind of a position, by God, you better be thinking about a side hustle or something else. Start learning something new. Don't wait for the shoe to drop, because it's coming. The shoe's falling right now. So,
Hmm.
I've been shouting this from the rooftops. For God's sakes, pick a side hustle, pick a vehicle that you get started to learning, because even multifamily is going to take some time. You got to build relationships. You got to, there are a lot of nuances to it. You got to figure out what role you're going to play, because a lot of different hats you can wear. But, it's going to be an incredible opportunity to buy businesses, Henry. I mean, there's 10,000 people a day right now, not just turning 80, they're turning 65 as well. And, a lot of those people own businesses that they want to sell. So there's a credible opportunity there as well. If there was two of me, one would be buying businesses right now, because I think that's an incredible opportunity too. So it's an exciting time, but it's also a little scary time. And again, if you're in one of these positions that could get impacted, maybe you're studying for a position that could be impacted, be thinking about a side hustle is my advice.
That's great advice. And, that was actually, you kind of ended up going that way, but that's one of the things that we always have people, we have a lot of smart people who've done amazing things. And we just ask them like, what's little nuggets of advice that you might give to the folks listening in the audience? But, we'll definitely, link to the boot camp in and of
Oh,
itself.
well,
That's
thanks.
kind of how I found you. I'm kind of personally interested in learning a little bit more about that. I'm someone who, probably like a lot of people in our community, they dabble. They have a couple of rental properties. The first one was probably just not wanting to sell a previous home that you lived in when you decided to
Right.
get a bigger one and raise your family in it. So you kept it, but the what's next, and I'm not sure that people say to themselves that I just want to go make gobs and gobs of money and then just keep throwing it more and more back into the stock market and so forth. They want to diversify those income streams or their skill set, and their mindset. But I love the idea that you lead with the mindset, because it's important for people to understand that if you're going to get into something, you got to visualize, like, what do you want to get out of it, and you got to be really committed to going in the first place. I mean, if you kind of dabble and you're don't think it's going to do that well for you, well, surprise, surprise, you, it's probably not going to do that well for you.
As you say it, so shall it be. I think a good book said that somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's perfect. Well, Rod, we'll let you get back to your busy day. We'll get this show out there with the links, and hopefully get some new people joining your boot camp. And if they happen to ask about, can I get started with some money that comes from my tax advantaged IRA type of accounts? Well, that maybe it came from the Rocket Dollar side, but
love it.
Thank you very much for joining us today, and
thank you.
Yeah, we'll let you get your workout in at the home gym you were telling me about off camera.
Oh yeah, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.